Shadows in the storm. The rain fell in heavy sheets, transforming the forest floor into a slick carpet of mud and pine needles. Remy Okafor cursed under his breath as he adjusted the weatherproof cover on his camera. 3 days tracking the elusive mountain lion through these woods, and now this deluge threatened to wash away any chance of getting his shot. Lightning split the sky, briefly illuminating the landscape in stark white. Remy counted, 1, 2, 3, before thunder crashed overhead. The storm was closing in. He needed shelter, and soon. As he turned to head back toward his cabin, something caught his eye. A flash, not lightning, too green around the edges, arcing across the horizon like a falling star that had forgotten its trajectory. It disappeared behind a ridge with a deep, resonant thump that Remy felt in his chest. Curiosity overrode caution. He secured his camera in his backpack and began trudging uphill through the mud, his boots sinking with each step. Wildlife photographers lived for the unexpected, though usually that meant a rare bird or an unusual animal behavior, not whatever had just crashed into his forest. When he crested the ridge, Remy froze. Smoke curled upward through the rain, dissipating into the dark clouds. But it wasn't the smoke that stopped him cold, it was the object half buried in the mud. It wasn't a meteor or satellite debris. The structure was too purposeful, too designed. Its hull curved in ways that defied conventional engineering, iridescent in places despite the lack of light. No seams were visible, as if the entire craft had been grown rather than assembled. A spacecraft. There was no other explanation that fit. Movement caught his eye, a figure dragging itself away from the wreckage. Small, perhaps the size of a teenager, but proportioned wrong. Its limbs were too thin, its head too angular. It wore what appeared to be a suit made of material that shifted colors like oil on water. Before Remy could decide whether to approach or retreat, the figure collapsed. Basic human decency won out over fear, and he scrambled down the slope. "Hey! Are you hurt?" he called, immediately feeling foolish. If this was what he thought it was, there was no reason to assume it understood English. The figure stirred at his approach. It rolled over, revealing a face that was almost human but distinctly alien, large, luminous eyes that reflected light like a cat's, no visible nose, just 2 small slits, and skin that seemed to shimmer with faint bioluminescence. Those eyes fixed on Remy, widened in what could only be terror, and the creature scrambled backward, pressing itself against the wreckage. It made a sound, a high, keening wail that raised the hair on Remy's arms. "Whoa, easy," Remy raised his hands, palms out. "I'm not going to hurt you." The alien hissed, revealing teeth that were small and surprisingly blunt. It clutched something in its hand, a device that pulsed with soft blue light. "Predator," it said suddenly, the word awkward and accented but unmistakably English. "Human predator." Remy blinked in surprise. "You speak English?" Universal translator, it tapped its throat where a small device was embedded. "Stay back, human. I know what you are." "What I am?" Remy frowned, still keeping his distance. "I'm just a photographer. I saw you crash and wanted to help." The alien's eyes narrowed. "Lies. Humans are hunters. Killers. We are shown the images, your wars, your slaughterhouses. You capture other species and consume them." Remy fought the urge to laugh despite the tension. Of all the first contact scenarios he'd imagined, being accused of cannibalism wasn't among them. "I'm not going to eat you," he said firmly. "Look, you're injured, it's pouring rain, and that ship doesn't look flight-worthy. Let me help you to shelter, at least." The alien regarded him warily, then glanced at the darkening sky and the relentless rain. A decision seemed to form behind those strange eyes. "If you attempt to capture me, I will defend myself," it warned, holding up the blue device which now hummed ominously. "Fair enough," Remy nodded. "My cabin's about a mile back through the woods. Can you walk?" The alien attempted to stand but stumbled, a grimace of pain crossing its features. Remy moved forward instinctively to help, but froze when the alien flinched. "Sorry," he said. "May I approach? To help you walk?" After a moment of consideration, it nodded once, sharply. Remy approached slowly and offered his arm for support. The alien hesitated before grasping it. Its skin was warm, warmer than a human's, and slightly textured, like fine suede. "What's your name?" Remy asked as they began the slow journey through the rain. "I'm Remy." The alien made a sound that seemed to consist entirely of vowels and soft clicks. "Your vocal apparatus cannot reproduce it. You may call me Nyx. It approximates a sound in my name." "Nyx," Remy repeated. "Like the Greek goddess of night. It suits you." They trudged through the downpour, Nyx leaning heavily against him. The alien was surprisingly light, as if its bones were hollow like a bird's. "Why did you crash?" Remy finally asked as his cabin came into view. Nyx was quiet for so long that Remy thought the question would go unanswered. Then, softly, "I was fleeing." "From what?" "Collectors," Nyx replied, the word heavy with dread. "They hunt species for study. Particularly those with interesting responses to fear." Remy felt a chill that had nothing to do with the rain. "And they were after you?" "After my kind, yes." Nyx looked up at the sky. "I escaped their vessel during transport. But they will search. They always do." They reached the cabin, and Remy helped Nyx inside. The alien flinched at the sudden warmth and light, those large eyes contracting to adjust. It scanned the room with obvious suspicion. "No cages?" it asked, seemingly confused. "Why would I have cages?" Remy frowned, grabbing a towel for himself and offering another to Nyx. The alien accepted it cautiously. "For your prey. Your captives." Remy sighed. "Look, I don't know what you've been told about humans, but we're not all monsters. I don't keep captives. This is just where I live." Nyx examined the towel, then mimicked Remy's motions to dry itself. "Your propaganda says humans value individual freedom above all else. Yet you cage other species on your planet." "It's complicated," Remy admitted, running the towel through his hair. "We're not perfect. But I promise you're not in danger from me." He moved to the small kitchen area. "Are you hungry? Can you eat our food?" "I can process most carbon-based nutrition," Nyx replied, still standing awkwardly in the center of the room. "But I will not consume flesh." "How about fruit? Bread? I have some soup I could heat up." The mention of soup seemed to intrigue Nyx. "Soup? This is the liquid food?" "Yeah, it's vegetables and broth. No meat, I promise." While Remy heated the soup, Nyx cautiously explored the cabin, examining objects with a mixture of curiosity and wariness. The alien seemed particularly fascinated by Remy's camera. "This captures images?" Nyx asked, carefully not touching it. "That's right. I'm a wildlife photographer. I take pictures of animals in their natural habitats. To hunt them later?" Remy laughed. "No, just to document them. To show their beauty to other humans who might never see them otherwise." Nyx seemed skeptical but nodded slowly. "On my world, we observe without interfering. We have no need for external images, we store memories collectively." The soup finished heating, and Remy poured 2 bowls. He handed one to Nyx, who sniffed it suspiciously before taking a careful sip. "This is acceptable," the alien announced, continuing to drink. They ate in silence for a few minutes before Nyx spoke again. "Why did you help me? Your kind is known for fear of difference." Remy considered the question. "Some humans fear what they don't understand, yes. But many of us are curious, compassionate. I couldn't just leave you out there injured." "Compassion," Nyx repeated the word as if testing it. "We were told humans only show this to their own kind. You were told wrong, Remy said simply. Thunder crashed outside, making Nyx flinch. The alien's gaze moved to the window, where rain lashed against the glass. The collectors, Nyx whispered. They will come. They always do. These collectors, Remy set down his bowl. What exactly are they? Nyx's luminous eyes met his, filled with a dread that transcended species barriers. They are neither fully organic nor machine. They study fear responses across the galaxy. They harvest reactions. And they never stop hunting what interests them. Why would your fear interest them? Not just mine, Nyx said softly. When they find me here, they will discover your species too. And humans, your fear responses are unique. Wonderfully complex. Remy felt a chill run down his spine. How do you know that? Because, Nyx replied, I can sense your fear even now. It tastes different from any species I've encountered. The collectors will find it irresistible. Outside, beyond the drumming rain, a sound rose, not thunder, not wind, something else entirely. A low, oscillating hum that seemed to vibrate through the cabin's wooden walls. Nyx set down the bowl with shaking hands. They're already here. Echoes from the stars. The humming grew louder, a discordant vibration that made the windows rattle and the floorboards creak. Remy's ears popped as if the air pressure had suddenly changed. Outside, the rain continued to fall, but now it seemed to move wrongly, droplets pausing mid-air before resuming their descent, some moving sideways against the wind. What's happening? Remy whispered, moving to the window. Reality distortion, Nyx replied, voice tight with fear. The collectors don't fully exist in your dimension. Their presence warps local physics. Through the rain-streaked glass, Remy could see strange lights dancing between the trees, not flashlights, but amorphous glows that pulsed in colors he couldn't quite name. They moved with purpose, converging slowly toward the cabin. We need to leave, Nyx said urgently. My ship, if I can repair it. In this storm. With those things out there. They aren't searching randomly. They're following my quantum signature. The crashed ship is broadcasting distress signals on frequencies they can detect. Nyx moved to the door, wincing with pain. I need to reach my vessel and disable the beacon. Remy grabbed his jacket and a flashlight. I'll help you. But you're still injured. My physiology heals rapidly. The pain is manageable. Nyx straightened with visible effort. I would not ask for your assistance, but time is critical. Remy nodded, quickly gathering supplies, a first aid kit, water, some tools that might prove useful. How do we avoid these collectors? They perceive reality differently than either of us. Movement attracts them, but emotional states even more so. Fear is. Nyx hesitated, particularly interesting to them. So stay calm and move slowly. Great. Remy took a deep breath. Ready? They slipped out the back door of the cabin. The rain had lessened somewhat, but the air felt wrong, too dense, as if they were moving through something more substantial than atmosphere. The forest sounds had changed too, ordinary noises warped into uncanny echoes. They moved carefully through the trees, avoiding the floating lights that drifted like curious jellyfish between the trunks. Twice they had to freeze and press themselves against rough bark as shapes passed nearby, not quite solid, not quite visible, like heat distortions given partial form. What exactly are they? Remy whispered during one such moment, barely daring to breathe as a shape glided past mere feet away. Collectors evolved beyond physical limitations, Nyx replied softly. They shed corporeal form millennia ago. What you perceive is merely their interface with your reality. When they finally reached the crash site, Remy was shocked to see the spacecraft had changed. What had been a broken hull now resembled something alive, parts had shifted, sections sealed themselves, and a faint glow pulsed beneath the surface like a heartbeat. Self-repair protocols, Nix explained, approaching the vessel and placing a six-fingered hand against its side. Not complete, but functioning. The alien slipped inside through an opening that seemed to form at its touch. Remy hesitated, then followed, ducking to enter what appeared to be a control chamber. Unlike human spacecraft with their rigid lines and mechanical interfaces, this ship's interior felt organic, surfaces curved seamlessly into one another, and lights pulsed along what might have been veins or circuitry embedded in the walls. Nix moved with purpose to a central column, manipulating controls that responded to touch and gesture. Symbols Remy couldn't begin to decipher flowed across surfaces like liquid. "The beacon is disabled," Nix announced after several tense minutes. "But they've already triangulated our position. We have little time." "Can the ship fly?" Remy asked, glancing around at the alien technology that somehow managed to look both advanced and primal simultaneously. "Not yet. Core propulsion is still regenerating." Nix's fingers danced over another panel. "But the defensive systems are operational." Outside, the humming intensified. The air within the ship vibrated with it, making Remy's teeth ache. Something was approaching, something big. "They've merged," Nix whispered, eyes wide. When hunting in close proximity, collectors can temporarily combine consciousness. Through the ship's translucent sections, Remy could see a massive distortion forming in the clearing. The air twisted, folded, and then tore open like fabric. Through the rift came something that his mind couldn't quite process, a shape that seemed to consist of angles that shouldn't exist, constantly shifting between states of matter. "What do we do?" Remy asked, fighting the primal urge to run. Nix's hands hadn't stopped moving across the controls. "I'm activating a quantum displacement field. It will temporarily push them out of phase with our reality." The entity outside continued to form, growing larger as it seemed to pull matter from the surrounding environment. Trees bent toward it, their substance stretching like taffy before breaking away in spiraling fragments that were absorbed into the mass. "It's feeding," Nix said grimly. "Building a more stable manifestation." The ship shuddered as energy began to build around its hull. Lights pulsed faster, and a high-pitched whine joined the external humming, creating a dissonant chord that made Remy want to cover his ears. The entity outside had finally settled into something almost comprehensible, a towering form with too many limbs, its surface constantly rippling as if unable to decide on a final shape. Where its face should have been was a void, darker than the night around it. It spoke, but not with sound. Words appeared directly in Remy's mind, bypassing his ears entirely. "Me again. Specimen Nix. Cease evasion. Return for continued study." Nix's hands trembled slightly, but her voice remained steady. "I am not your specimen. I claim asylum on this world." The entity seemed to consider this, its form contracting slightly before expanding again. "New species detected. Human. Fear response complex. Intriguing." Remy felt a pressure in his mind, like something trying to pry open his thoughts. Images flashed before him, moments of terror from his life, magnified and examined. "Stop," he gasped, as memories of childhood nightmares and adult fears played in rapid succession. Collection imperative expanded. 2 specimens required. "No," Nix's voice was firm as the ship's energy built to a crescendo. "You cannot have either of us." The displacement field activated with a sound like reality itself being torn apart. A pulse of energy erupted from the ship, expanding outward in concentric rings. Where it touched the entity, the collector's form destabilized, pieces of it phasing in and out of visibility. The entity recoiled, its mental voice becoming fragmented. "Resistance. Unprecedented. Will return." With a final surge, the displacement field pushed the collector fully out of phase. The entity seemed to fold in on itself, collapsing into the rift it had created, which sealed closed behind it with a thunderclap that shook the ground. Silence fell. Even the rain had stopped. Remy realized he'd been holding his breath and exhaled slowly. Is it gone? Temporarily displaced, Nyx replied, slumping against the control column. The field disrupted its ability to maintain cohesion in this dimension. But it will recover, recalibrate. How long do we have? Hours, perhaps. Less if more collectors join the hunt. Nyx straightened, checking the ship's systems. The core propulsion is at 68%. Sufficient for emergency launch, but not interstellar travel. Remy looked at the alien who had appended his understanding of the universe in a single night. You're leaving, then? I must. My presence endangers your world. Nyx's luminous eyes met his. The collectors now know of humanity. They find your fear responses fascinating. They will return, with or without me. So you're saying we're all in danger now? Nyx was quiet for a moment. Perhaps not as much as I feared. Your species has something mine lacks. What's that? When faced with the unknown, you move toward it, not away. Nyx's mouth formed what might have been a smile. Your curiosity often overrides your fear. The collectors may find that problematic. The ship's lights pulsed more steadily now, and new sounds emerged, the hum of systems awakening, preparing for flight. Will you warn others? Remy asked. About the collectors, about us? Yes. My people must know the truth about humans. Nyx hesitated, then extended a six-fingered hand. We were taught that you were predators, monsters who consume all in your path. There is truth in that, but it is not the complete truth. Remy took the offered hand, feeling the strange texture of the alien's skin against his own. We're complicated. Capable of both terrible and wonderful things. As are all sentient species, it seems. Nyx released his hand and moved toward the control column. You should go. The launch sequence will begin soon. Remy nodded and moved toward the exit. He paused at the threshold, looking back. Will you come back? When it's safer. Nyx's eyes glowed softly in the dim light of the ship. Perhaps. Your world is unexpected. Outside, Remy retreated to the edge of the clearing. The forest had begun to recover from the collector's presence, birds cautiously resumed their calls, and the air felt normal again. The spacecraft's glow intensified, pulses of light racing across its surface like heartbeats. With a sound like a gentle sigh, the ship lifted from the ground. No flames, no violent thrust, just a smooth ascension that barely disturbed the leaves below. It hovered for a moment, as if hesitating, then accelerated upward with impossible speed, becoming a pinpoint of light among the stars before vanishing entirely. Remy stood alone in the clearing, rain beginning to fall again in a gentle patter. He wondered how many other beings were out there, watching Earth, forming opinions based on partial truths. And he wondered what humanity would do when they eventually discovered they weren't alone. Would they react with fear, or with the curious compassion he'd shown Nyx? As he turned to walk back to his cabin, something caught his eye, a small object nestled in the mud where the ship had rested. He picked it up carefully, a crystal-like device that pulsed faintly with inner light when he touched it. A message, perhaps. Or a warning. Or simply a reminder that the universe was stranger and more wondrous than humanity had ever imagined. Either way, Remy knew, nothing would ever be the same again.